Good morning.
Good morning.
I was over here in the groove going on. In the groove. How are you?
I'm great, and yourself?
I'm good. I guess it's been more than a week. How have your weeks been?
Weeking.
Uh-oh. I know, it
How
just
about
feels
yours?
like what? I don't know. It's something, I don't know if it's in the air. I don't know. I just want to, on one hand, I want to just jet on them, as my friend would say. Like, just jet on them. Just get away, go, bye. And on the other hand, I just want to lay down. I think it's the weather. It's probably the weather the last couple of days. It's been a little rainy. It was beautiful the first part of the week, and then it just got rainy. Summertime is supposed to be I think about summertime as kids. This is where you kind of reset, you get to play, you get to enjoy and be frolicking and free. We don't get that as
Right.
adults. I need a frolic and free moment as an adult. How about that? I think I'm missing that. I'm reminiscing. So I need to find some of that joy uh, this summer somehow, some way. And I still need some ocean, and it's calling me, and I still need to get me some ocean.
Look, that was great. It just sounds like you might just be ready for a trip.
I need some ocean. I need some large bodies of water. I'm settling on this little lake foolishness, but I think I need some ocean. But other than that, everything's good. I won't complain. Not at all. I won't complain. Not at all.
All right.
Right, right. Okay. Well, welcome everybody to our Saturday morning tea. Here we brew up the hottest topics in healthcare. We discuss health information, news, education, being melancholy in the summer, but not complaining, certification tips, entrepreneurship, and the revenue cycle at large. And so as you come in, don't forget to hit the thumbs up or like button. I'm Clarice Warner. I'm the girl with the pearls, the founder and senior education director of the Professional Reimbursement Network, LLC, where coding education is key. And PRN is a healthcare compliance consultancy located in Cincinnati, Ohio, that specializes in revenue cycle and regulatory compliance in education. And let me ask, do you know what it takes to be a certified, marketable medical coder? Hmm? Well, before I introduce my co host, let me share with you information on a free, yes, free 99 email course on the 5 steps to become a certified marketable medical coder.
Are you interested in medical coding, but not sure where to start? And scared of wasting time and resources? Let me help you with the right steps to become a certified, marketable medical coder. Learn more at bit.ly/5stepscoder.
Yay. If you're interested in getting more information about the 5 steps to become a certified marketable medical coder, check the video description for the link. Joining me today is my partner in success, my co host, Mr. Jesse, the registered trademark. Put some respect on his name, the coding nurse. Sir, introduce yourself and tell the folks all about you.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Jesse. I live in Philadelphia. I've been in healthcare for a very long time. In 2014, I left the bedside and moved into risk adjustment coding. During the pandemic in 2020, I created a company, the Coding Nurse LLC, where I help nurses and other people in healthcare with the clinical background to transition into the wonderful world of HIM.
Yes, and how is that going?
It's coming along. Along those lines, I think I'm going to be going international because I have had several people reach out to me from the UK who want to learn coding.
Okay,
And
international.
and I looked it up. I mean, they use ICD-10, but they use a little different version. So I'm really seeing how I can put it all together. Because if I got an audience, look, I'll teach you if you're in a hut in Sudan.
Well, congratulations on the expansion into over the pond. That's beautiful. That's wonderful. That's what's up. That's what's up. I love it. I love it. Yeah, you got to keep us posted on that, on how that's working out. Now, you say they only use they don't use PCS as us.
Well, they have a different procedure
Kind of
code.
procedure thing. Okay.
And well, of course, you can find almost anything online. I found their I guess their coding guidance.
Okay.
It was 2,700 pages. Like, now wait a minute.
You so silly. So well, we'll talk more about that.
Yeah.
In the meeting after the meeting. How about that? That'll be fun. That'll be fun. Cool. Well, I love that. I love that. Let's see who we got in here. Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Before we jump in, let me remind you that you can join in and add to the conversation. So don't be shy. Your opinion matters and is welcomed here. So friends, please use the chat if you have a question. Now, only thing that we ask is that you put a Q first. Nobody does it. People are so hard-headed. But you place a Q first so that we know that it's a question for us and we don't miss it. Actually, I think we've had one or two people do it. I won't say everybody is hard-headed. All right. So for those who are joining us or watching the replay, this was a whole lot. This was a whole lot. Today we are talking about CMS and CMSing, but they dropped a bombshell on new Medicare Advantage audit strategy. And so we're going to kind of walk through and explain what that strategy looks like. But first, let's get into our church announcements, shall we? Hey, you be Johnny on the spot. That's why I love you. Oh, you be like, boom, bam, pop. Hey. All right. Well, I think Mr. Jesse already started us off with his Mr. International announcement, which is fabulous. I love that for you. I just wanted to say that, CMS has announced both ICD-10 PCS and ICD-10 CM codes that are effective October 1st. So remember, these files, they've updated all the files and they're available. You can go out to CMS's website to take a look and peek and see what's happening, what's changed, what's deleted, what's added, all of the wonderful things. You'll start seeing all of those announcements and webinars and all of the things start trickling out. But you can be the first to get them. Anyway, remember that these are for discharges that occur from October 1st, 2025 through September 30th, 2026. But don't forget that there's also the additional update that we have in April. So just want to give that information. Really, that's all I had. Mr. Jesse, did you have any other announcements that you wanted to make?
No.
Cool. Good morning, Crafty Coder, our on the street correspondent. Good morning.
Yes.
Righty. Okay. I know it's been a week that I haven't been on here, but why I'm acting like I don't know where stuff is. Okay. Yeah. Alrighty. So let the tea spilling begin. So again, good morning, everyone. I hope you got you some tea. I do. My tea. And it's extra hot, so I can't even drink it. I don't know what I did different. It's so hot. I'm like, what in the world? But anyway. Hope you grab your tea or your beverage of choice because we need to talk about something that's going to shake up the Medicare Advantage world in a big way. CMS just dropped a bombshell announcement that's going to impact every single Medicare Advantage plan in the country. And if you're working in healthcare reimbursement, this is absolutely something you need to understand. I'm Clarice Warner, the girl with the pearls, and my co-host, the coding nurse. And we're here to break down CMS's aggressive new audit strategy that could recover billions. Yes, billions in overpayments. So this is about to be this. They about to play some chess. Let's say that. So trust me, you're going to want to stay for this entire conversation because it's a lot. It was a lot reading it. It's a lot. It's going to be a lot talking about it. So here's what happened. At the end of last month, CMS came out swinging with what they're calling an quote, aggressive strategy, end quote, to enhance and accelerate Medicare Advantage audits. When I say aggressive, I mean it. They're not playing around anymore. You know, we've talked all about, and I was going to talk about today until I saw this, but I was going to talk about the OIG's audit reports that, or summary of audits that came out recently as well. So what they got in there is probably going to balloon after all of this takes effect. So we'll see, because it's crazy. It's crazy. Anyway, here's the situation. CMS has been way behind on their RADV audits, and that's the risk adjustment data validation for those who are new to the risk adjustment game. So we're talking years behind. Whose fault is that? We're not going to point any fingers. We're not going to say, but you know, it is what it is. It is a thing. The last time that they actually recovered significant overpayments was from auditing the 2007 data. 2007. So, federal estimates suggest that Medicare Advantage plans may be overbilling the government by $17 billion a year, with some estimates as high as $43 billion a year. Our new CMS administrator, Dr. Mehmet Oz, made it crystal clear, quote, "We are committed to crushing fraud, waste, and abuse across all federal healthcare programs," end quote. And for some, those are fighting words, and they're backing them up with this action. So what's changing? There are three major things. First, they're going from auditing about 60 Medicare Advantage plans per year to auditing all eligible Medicare Advantage contracts each payment year. That's approximately 550 plans. Let that sink in for a minute, because really? Okay. Second, they're expanding their workforce from 40 medical coders to 2,000 medical coders by September 1st, 2025. Let that part sink in as well. How many people and folks have we heard talk about they can't find coders and the job? Okay, let that sink in. Only probably to have them released a month. Did I stop? Okay. And third, they're deploying advanced technology to efficiently review medical records and flag unsupported diagnosis. Now, the timeline is ambitious. They want to complete all remaining RADV audits for payment years 2018 through 2024 by early 2026. I'm like, what they got over there? They drinking more than tea, right? They're Also increasing the number of records they review per health plan from 35 to potentially 200, depending on the plan size. This is about to get the Wild Wild West is here. So I also want to share some insights from some uh, healthcare colleagues. One in particular, Jason Jobs. So there was a LinkedIn article that kind of shed additional light on all of the things. And he pretty much talked about the magnitude of this shift. He pointed out that this increased patient record reviews from 2,100 per year to about 110,000 per year. That's about a 50 times increase. And Jason said it perfectly. This isn't a regulatory blip, it's a full system recalibration. And he's absolutely right. CMS is recentering around defensibility, not documentation volume. And it's not just about having the codes anymore. It's about proving them with audit grade specificity in every chart at every visit. So it's folks, the game is changing. Uh, the game is changing. Right. She's like, you get a job, you get a job, and you get a job until we find our money. And then you might not have it anymore. How about that? That's the part that, job today may not be there tomorrow. But anyway, so Mr. Jesse, jump in at any time. So let's start with the most fundamental change here. So again, Jason Jobs captured this when he said, for years, the industry's rhythm has been capture diagnoses, justify revenue, and repeat. And that loop is now being broken. So what does that mean in practical terms? So for the past 2 decades, the focus has been on volume. How many diagnoses can we capture? How many HCCs, again, for those new to risk adjustment, that is hierarchical condition categories. How many HCCs can we document to maximize our risk adjustment factor or RADV score? But CMS is fundamentally changing the rules of the game. And they're saying, we don't care how many codes you have. We care if you can prove every single one of them. That is what Jason means by defensibility over volume. Think about it this way. If you were audited tomorrow, could you defend every single diagnosis code in your charts? Not just the provider documented it, but can you show medical necessity, clinical indicators, treatment plans, and outcomes that support that diagnosis? That compassionate sacrifice is about to go out the window. So this shift is going to require a complete rethinking of clinical documentation improvement, or CDI strategies. CDI teams have historically focused on capture and query processes. Now they need to think like auditors from day one. Every piece of documentation needs to be created with the assumption that it will be scrutinized by CMS's new army of 2,000 auditors. So the bottom line, we're moving from a world where good enough documentation was, well, good enough, to a world where every chart needs to be bulletproof. Okay. Then we have this workforce challenge, and that is finding the 2,000 qualified auditors. So now Betsy Nicoletti raised what I think is the $1 million question, literally, when she asked, well, where will they find 2,000 experienced HCC coders? Where? This isn't just about hiring warm bodies. These positions require incredibly specialized knowledge. So let me give you a little more context around that. An experienced HCC coder needs to understand not just ICD-10 CM, that's of course the International Classification of Diseases, 10th revision, clinical modification, if you're new out here in these streets. But they need to know how these codes map to HCCs. They need to understand the hierarchical structure that prevents double counting and know the clinical nuances that make a diagnosis supportable versus questionable. Currently, there are only about 200,000 qualified medical coders in the entire US, even though Mr. Jesse is about to put some of the UK coders on the map and get them ready. Hey, maybe you're about to get them ready just for this. How about that? Look at God working in mysterious ways. Anyway, CMS is trying to hire 2,000 specialists in one of the most complex areas of coding. That's a 1% of the entire coding workforce, and they need to be experts, not entry-level coders. So here's what this means for our industry. First, we're going to see significant salary inflation for experienced HCC coders. Second, certification programs are going to need to rapidly scale their risk adjustment curricula. Third, existing coders are going to need to upskill quickly to take advantage of these opportunities. I hear entrepreneurial opportunities all day, but hey. But here's the concerning part. If CMS can't find qualified auditors, they might lower their standards, which could lead to inconsistent audit findings and appeals. Or worse, they may rely too heavily on their AI technology without proper human oversight, which will be a nightmare with the volume of the stuff that they're about to look at. So for those of you in coding or CDI roles, this represents a massive career opportunity for you. But for healthcare organizations, this represents a potential talent drain, as your best coders might get recruited by CMS or other audit firms. Teach people right. Maybe they'll stick and stay. Mr. Jesse?
Ever since we met on Clubhouse, haven't I been telling you that risk adjustment is a mess?
Yes, you have. From day one.
I last April made it 11 years that I've been in coding, and I started out in risk adjustment. And it was a mess then, and it's a mess now. And it's going to continue to be a mess because it's not hard. It's not. It is some of the easiest coding you can ever do. I could do it in my sleep. And most people can. But the problem is, like everything else in healthcare in this country, it comes down to documentation. And these providers feel as though they can document whatever. And you tell them, you cannot put that somebody has an active cancer and you put stable followed by oncology. What is that? That's no. And the thing is, CMS puts out the OIG puts out every year what they focus on, the top 10 conditions with data. All you have to do is just use that and clean up your house. But they never do it.
Never. That's just a perfect segue into the provider impact. So there will be more scrutiny and more documentation requests. So for what this basically means is that in the exam room and at the bedside, because this isn't just a back office issue, providers will feel this in their inboxes and exam rooms, as Jason pointed out. So here's what providers can expect. First, a dramatic increase in medical record requests. Again, we're talking about going from reviewing 2,100 records per year across all MA plans to potentially 110,000 or more. That's a lot of records that need to be retrieved, possibly copied, and submitted. That's a lot. not only are you looking at an increase in your reviewer staff, but you also going to need an increase in, the release of information staff and the people who have to prepare this documentation. And even if they, have it set up where they have queues for them to come in and look and somebody still had to do that work. That's still work. There's still things that you have to do to prepare for that. So this is a whole lot. So yeah, a lot. Second, more retrospective reviews of clinical decision making. So when CMS questions a diagnosis, they're not just looking at whether it was documented, they're looking at whether it was clinically appropriate, supported by diagnostic testing, and resulted in appropriate treatment. Third, more granular feedback on documentation practices. So instead of general guidance like document more thoroughly, providers are going to get specific feedback like your documentation of diabetic retinopathy lacks the specificity to support the HCC mapping you claim. And maybe in not just those terms. But here's where this gets even tricky for provider plan relationships. So MA plans are going to become much more aggressive in their own internal auditing to avoid CMS penalties. So this means providers might see more frequent retrospective chart reviews from their contracted MA plans, stricter prior authorization requirements for high-value diagnoses, more detailed documentation requirements in their provider contracts, and potentially financial penalties for patterns of unsupported diagnoses. So the challenge is that most providers already feel overwhelmed with administrative burden. Adding audit grade documentation requirements to every encounter is going to require significant workflow changes and potentially more clinical staff or more clinical support staff. As she says, as the crafty coder says, how the tides change. Watch these providers come apart at the seams. They're about to retire. And they're already talking about the shortage in providers. This is a lot. When I was reading this, I was like, wow, this is a lot. Mr. Jesse.
But it's really not, though. I mean,
I'm just thinking about the that work that coming in, that constant. I mean, people have already complained about receiving the reviews, not necessarily what's supposed to happen, because all of this really is supposed to be happening anyway on the front end. For real. Keep it a buck. This is really what should go on, and you just have made workaround after workaround, or putting people in place to tap folks on the shoulder. Look at your stuff right here. Let's talk about you've created that workaround. I'm just thinking about on the further end of the spectrum where all of these audits are coming in, these requests, all of that is going to be massive. But go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Well, that will be like you said, but only for the release of information people, but not for the providers. Because I mean, it's electronic records. They just put it on a flash drive or they upload it and going about their business. But I don't, well, of course there will be a knee-jerk reaction. And there will be, I can definitely see, later on in the year, there's going to be a mad rush for HCC coders. And I do believe, I mean, I've felt as though for a while now, and that's why I stopped. I mean, the money is terrible. It used to not be, but it is now, and it needs to go back. I mean, and I just think that the worst thing that could possibly happen is this needs to be approached from a coding standpoint, not from a CDI standpoint. And when they bring in CDI people, if you're not a risk adjustment coder, you're useless. And there was a point that the woman had, one of the comments you read about, you have to know about double something when it comes to the RAF score. Like, you don't have to know that, because that's done on the back end. because what it means is like if you, and actually see the CMS changed with version 28.
28.
They used to have 3 categories for CMS HCCs for diabetes, like 17, 18, and 19, like no complications, chronic, and then acute. Well, they changed it now. Now there's no difference between chronic and acute in terms of weight. So that's where that, but again, but you have to still have the documentation to support whatever. And they just don't like, and it's so, it could all be so simple. But
Ain't it?
I'm telling you, like, I've seen some horrible, just ridiculous documentation. Like, why are you diagnosing an acute condition in a medical office like a stroke? Are you serious? Like, just stop it. Like, that's obvious.
Mm-hmm.
How are you at some random office in Idaho being diagnosed with a daggone stroke? No CT, no MRI. What?
When I
It's
see
just,
people, when I see stuff happening nowadays, I always ask, who raised these people? Now, over here in our world, who trained these people?
but the problem is, but the real issue is you have people who don't do, see, I've always been mouthy. I've always been like, no, that's not right. And you have too many people, too many coders. Let me just be specific. Too many coders who go along to get along.
Yes,
Well,
and they don't stand
said,
up and say,
no,
absolutely.
exactly. They said, well, this is what they said to do, so I'm going to do it.
That's what I'm going to do. Oh my God, I've heard that a million
And
times.
what I think they need to do, honestly, if I was a CMS, I would be snatching coding credentials. That's what I'd be doing. You gonna go down with Dr. Kildare, both of y'all. That's what I'd be doing.
Absolutely.
Oh, you coded this?
You coded this. You know the rules. He or she may not. You do or should.
No, you and your attorney.
You need to be stopping this foolishness. That's your job. That's what you're supposed to gatekeep. The document, the codes going out with this foolishness documentation. You send it what it says. You send what it supports, not what you want it to support. Send what it supports.
Because me being a nurse, you know every day you could potentially lose your license. Coders need to walk around every day thinking I can lose my credentials.
That's a different spin. And maybe things will change. Maybe.
Oh, they would. They would.
Yeah. Well, and something you also said that probably has, particularly in this area of HCC coding, how the reimbursement, but the pay for these coders have tanked. I remember when it first came out, it was so lucrative. Ooh, this is the place to be. This is what you want to get into. This is what you want to. And then I think when people thought, I really think, I mean, and you said this is kind of like the easiest coding that you do. And I think people think that it's so easy that it doesn't require any additional skill or thought behind it, but that's not true. I mean, it's just different. It's a specialty and it should be treated as such, just like cardiology, just like OB, just, those are different specialties that require a different level of skill by the coder. This is the same thing. So to just kind of throw it as, oh no, it's just general and you just ticking in time diagnosis. No, there's more to it than just that. And while it is easy coding, if you have the skill, it shouldn't be treated like the bald-headed stepchild of the coding world with, oh, let me throw some pennies at it. No, the folks who are doing this work deserve specialty payment, specialty wages, just like anybody else. And so maybe with this is an opportunity for folks to get that. Again.
Well, I don't know who's going to train him, because
that's a whole other conversation.
Because it's people out here who
that don't know.
and have been in risk adjustment as long as me, but I wouldn't trust the chart that they did to save my life.
And then you have to kind of think about so this is going to require those who are who are well skilled, well knowledgeable in this area to help train this workforce, because even in our educational institutions, some of the folks have not coded in a long time. They may have never coded risk adjustment. So they can only teach you the textbook way, if you will. And they don't have any practical experience or application. That's what I meant. So there's going to need to be a collaboration, again, with these educational institutions or any institution who is trying to train these people with the talent that exists. They're going to have some kind of collaboration, at least I think. But go ahead.
And another thing that needs to change, if they want to make it about quality, is you cannot do risk adjustment per chart. It needs to be hourly. And you have some, because everything is about money. And you have these people, because the productivity for risk adjustment is ridiculous now. How many charts they want you to do per hour. So how can you validate?
Do you know what the productivity is? Average kind of productivity?
Like 4 to 5. And when I started, it was 3.
Okay.
And if you have because it comes, how they used to do it is they would audit. Everything is randomized samples based on like the 3 tiers. So you have people who aren't sick at all, people who have some conditions, and people who are very sick. They do a mix. So you can have one data service for the whole year, because you don't know till you open it up. You could have one data service. The person has cholesterol. That's it. Okay, easy peasy. Takes you 5 minutes. One encounter note. That's it. No chronic conditions. No nothing. Okay, fine. Then you have another one. You'll open it up. This person has been in the hospital 3 times, and you have 3,000 pages. If anybody should take a haircut, it shouldn't be the coder, because you don't know what you're getting, or what you need to do, because they say that they can't do this, but they can. You can. What they should do is they should move those high page count, those high page cases to a separate queue, and have a separate group of people work on those. It can be done. It's just they don't want to. They want people to run around, and then people are gonna do what they got to do to make money. So if they don't validate everything, then they don't.
And that's a whole ethical issue too. But yeah, that's crazy.
And nobody wants to talk about it. But another problem with risk adjustment coding is they didn't offshore it. You have people in Manila and Bangalore, India, doing these reviews.
Say that. So again, where does that buck stop? Because clearly it has been determined based on all of these, even the reviews that they did do, that there's a problem. There's a problem.
It was a problem in 2015.
That's what I'm saying. There's a problem. You got the data to show that there is a problem. But let's look at how the problem has exploded. And when did the problem explode? And how has the problem exploded? And why have the problem? The question.
Because everybody is trying to save money, and I get it. But you can pay people well and still make money. And do you have to make $1 billion off of everything? Like at what point, what is acceptable? Because as a result, this entire industry is on its ear, because nobody really cares.
It's all about the dollar bill, y'all.
Exactly.
The dollar
And
bill.
they don't train people properly. There's no documentation, no policy. And, I say it all the time, but the best people to ever do risk adjustment auditing was Inovalon. I mean, outpatient, nobody touched them. You had a manual.
Are they still doing that?
Not in that way.
Well, maybe they're about to ramp up. Maybe they're coming back.
if they went back, when I tell you, I would jump back. Look, especially for that money, I would. Because that means they paid and they gave you very, very good training, right? You were not unsure about anything. Their policies had policy. And that's what you need. Because what are you going to stand on when you're doing these reviews? What criteria are you using? And you have people like, when I'm in these coding forums, like there are people who say that they were on risk adjustment projects where you code from the problem list. How?
That's a no-no off the top. Off the top. Oh my God. Crazy.
But have you seen you've seen these problem lists?
Mm-hmm. I have.
If they stubbed their toe and there were 6 that's on their problem.
It's on the problem list. Nobody is cleaning that up. Nobody is doing that whole documentation governance, if you will, of making sure that things are put where they're supposed to be. Everything doesn't have to, your problem list should be your active problems that are going on. There's a place for all of that history. In the history, there's a place for it.
And even some of these problem lists even have contradictory information.
Right, because of things that have shifted with the patient. Things have changed. It doesn't exist anymore, or it may be more aggressive or more acute. Things have changed. Every visit, oftentimes there's something that's changing that will require someone to go in and update that problem list. And is that a regular occurrence? No, clearly not. That you're seeing craziness and foolishness in the problem list. Again, at the end of the day, all of this boils down to what? Documentation. Documentation.
Well, I definitely see a lot of opportunity, and I just would like to see the right coders get these positions. I would like to see risk adjustment coders move into risk adjustment CDI. That's what I don't want to see nurses do risk adjustment CDI. I don't. Unless they're a coder as well. That's a disaster, because I'm telling you that's why, like, inpatient, that's why it's just ridiculous. It really, and it could all be so simple, but the problem is they have too many of the wrong people in the wrong positions.
Yeah.
And it's just a hot, fiery mess.
You're absolutely right.
But I also realized, because I had this epiphany this year, like, even when I was interviewing for like CDI positions, what I've realized was I have a way of thinking they're not comfortable with, because I think like a coder. Everything that I code or I document, I'm looking for validation while I'm reviewing it.
And that's what they're stating, that needs to be the focus. And it's not. It's not. You're absolutely right.
Because that's not how people are trained to do reviews. And then when I would come from that, when I would cite examples, because I thought about it when I had that interview with NYU, and the lady was like, well, he talked about coding. Everything comes down to coding.
Mm-hmm.
But that's why my accuracy was 99%.
Mm-hmm.
How can you code something that you don't have support for? That would either lead you to a query or to not code it.
Mm-hmm.
So what is but I've realized I think like, well, I was trained as a coder. So I don't think like a nurse when it comes to coding, because you can't. Yeah. But that's what they do. And that's what they stand on and hide behind. But that it doesn't work.
Nope. Absolutely not.
Exactly, Tanika. They got every stage of CKD imaginable documented.
On the problem list. It's crazy. It's crazy. Oh no. This is gonna be, it's gonna be a lot. It's gonna be a lot. And folks need to be prepared for it, really. And I don't I don't even know where to begin with even that. So a couple other things to think about is, you know, that there are so many silos, and with this new aggressive proposition by CMS, you got to think about how to break those silos down. So and with silos, and this happens in most healthcare organizations, they don't even communicate with each other, let alone effectively. So like you have your clinical departments that's focused primarily, and not to say that these things, they shouldn't be, but at some point, somebody needs to come together and have a conversation about it. So your clinical departments are focused on patient care, CDI teams focused on diagnosis capture, coding teams focused on accurate code assignments, compliance teams focused on audit readiness, revenue cycle teams focused on payment optimization, and quality teams focus on outcome metrics. And again, these teams have operated historically independently. The CDI team will query for diagnoses, the coding team assigns the codes, revenue cycle team submits the claims, and the compliance teams deals with any audit issues after the fact. But with what CMS now wants to do with this new audit intensity, this approach will actually become a liability, because if a diagnosis is captured by CDI but can't be defended clinically, it creates an audit risk. And if a code is assigned correctly, but the underlying documentation doesn't support medical necessity, it creates an audit risk. And then if the revenue cycle optimized for short-term payment but ignores long-term audit exposure, that too creates a financial risk. So the solution looks like an audit-minded collaboration. And Mr. Jesse, it's more thinking like you said, think about how this is validated as you're doing your work, or validating as you're working. So your CDI teams need to think like compliance officers when they query. Providers need to understand the compliance implications of their documentation choices. Coding teams need to flag potentially problematic diagnoses before they become audit findings. And compliance teams need to be involved in documentation workflows, not just audit responses. Again, folks be like, well, that's just creating more meeting time. I don't have time for that because I have productivity and I got to do what I got to do. But really, you need to set the time to restructure the workflow so that the audit defensibility is considered at every step of the documentation and coding process. The other thing that I think that is kind of, well, they talk about the providers, but making sure that the providers or whoever the lead providers are sitting at that table as well, because they need to understand and see what it is that they do at the beginning of this chain impacts the chain going all the way down the pipe. Go ahead.
What I really think, because we all know that you have some providers that can be cantankerous. Shout out to the crafty coder. But at the end of the day, whether they are cantankerous or not, I'm going to always put the burden on the coder because you coded it. You should know better. I don't care what they say. Case in point, I'm going to tell you this real quickly. I did a case. I audited a case. This person had a diagnosis of the principal diagnosis of sepsis and 4 MCCs. I felt like they shouldn't have got paid for any of them. First of all, the person did not meet sepsis criteria. How it got coded is beyond me. I don't blame the physician. I blame the coder. There's criteria. When I tell you, because this particular place, they used the SOFA score. Their SOFA score was 0. 0. Then then they were treated for pneumonia and aspiration pneumonia, because you can have both. But why in the discharge summary did the attending say that the pulmonologist said the patient didn't have pneumonia, they had atelectasis? So how can you get paid for that?
Right.
Then what the person really had was a UTI and maybe metabolic encephalopathy, because that kind of happens in older people. But even that was hard because the person had dementia, and the documentation was kind of iffy about whether they really went back to baseline. That's not on the provider. That is on the coder to say, what is this? And there was not one query sent. That's the problem. I can't blame the coder. I cannot. I mean, the physician, I can't. I blame the coder. You should know. You let the doctor didn't code that and submit it for payment. You did.
Wow. Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. And there were some more thoughts that, I'll probably put together in a moment with Clarice video to kind of talk through more of the things that they mentioned. But just be aware that, CMS, we have a new administration, and everything that the new administration said they was going to do, they're doing. Just keep that in mind. So I don't see this being any different. And so we really, really just need to be prepared. Couple takeaways for individual professionals. So for medical coders, this represents a massive career opportunity with likely salary increases. So what you need to be planning to do is upskill in HCC coding and audit procedures immediately, if not sooner. Consider CMS employment or consulting opportunities, because they come in. And then focus on clinical knowledge alongside coding expertise. For CDI professionals, shift the focus from capture volume to audit defensibility, develop expertise in medical necessity standards, learn to think like an auditor when creating queries, build stronger relationships with compliance teams. For the physician and clinical staff, document clinical thinking and decision-making, not just diagnoses. Understand that good clinical documentation usually equals good audit documentation. Engage proactively with CDI teams rather than seeing them as administrative burden, and then focus on diagnoses that require active management and monitoring. And for our compliance professionals, become more involved in front-end documentation processes. Develop expertise in RADV audit procedures and appeals. Build relationships with clinical teams to improve real-time compliance. Prepare for increased audit volume and complexity, so that everybody will be prepared. And then the last thing I want to mention that we've talked about is kind of around the workforce and training challenges. So again, there are several ripple effects of this. Of course, there will be the salary inflation. So when demand far exceeds supply, wages will go up. So hopefully we will see HCC coding positions with salaries 20 to 30% higher than traditional coding roles. This CMS hiring spree is going to accelerate that trend. Second, certification program expansion. Organizations like AHIMA and AAPC are going to need to rapidly scale their risk adjustment education programs. Third, there will be a brain drain from healthcare organizations. That means your best HCC coders are going to get recruited by CMS and consulting firms and other organizations by offering premium salaries for audit expertise. But there's the opportunity that creates a massive career advancement opportunity for existing coders. If you're currently doing general medical coding, and we've talked about this several times, now is the time to specialize in something else. Right now, risk adjustment. The return on investment for HCC certification and training is going to be substantial. For healthcare organizations, you need to think strategically about retention. Consider offering tuition reimbursement for HCC certification, creating clear career advancement paths for coding professionals, and providing competitive compensation to retain your best talent. Also, cross-training multiple staff members so you're not dependent on one expert. The training challenge is also an opportunity for educational innovation. We might see new models like apprenticeship programs, virtual reality training for complex coding scenarios, or AI-assisted learning platforms. Long-term, this workforce expansion could actually benefit the industry by creating a larger pool of trained professionals and potentially driving down costs once the initial hiring surge settles. So it's a lot to think about, a lot that is happening, and a lot of change that is on the horizon. And really, the question really comes down, where are you going to sit in this change? What are you doing to prepare yourself for this change? We know change is never easy, but it's also where opportunity lives. And this whole CMS audit expansion is going to create winners and losers in the Medicare Advantage space. And the winners will be the organizations and individual professionals that see this as an opportunity to improve their processes, invest in their people, and get ahead of the curve. So which one are you going to be? Mr. Jesse?
What else needs to change is AAPC, because they have the CRC certification, but their certification, to me, the exam needs to change because it is really, really not all that focused on risk adjustment like it used to be back when I took mine in 2017. Now it's like almost their coding questions are like full capture coding. That's not risk adjustment. And that's not the focus of risk adjustment. Full code capture, absolutely not.
And that's here again is telling you that that is contrary to what needs to happen. That's where these audit overpayment billing or these additional audit dollars are going to come in because you're doing it not appropriately, doing the full code capture. So somebody needs to rethink all of that, because you're setting folks up to fail. You're setting folks up and organizations up to fail in this new CMS dynamic.
I agree.
All right, y'all. All right. So more to come on all of this bombshell that CMS is dropped. All right. All right. Let's see. So are you thirsty for fresh perspectives on healthcare revenue cycle? Did you get some fresh perspective today? Let me just ask that. So by becoming one of the PRNT sippers, you'll join a community of sharp minds who savor the complexities of the healthcare revenue cycle. So why sip alone when you can steep in knowledge together? Come, let's spill the tea on industry insights. And here's what you can expect as a valued member of the Tea Sippers. Exclusive healthcare insights, so you can gain access to in-depth articles, webinars, and resources covering the latest healthcare trends, compliance updates, and revenue cycle best practices. Be the first to receive expert insights and guides, ensuring you stay ahead in the ever-evolving healthcare industry with early access, personalized support. Enjoy direct access to our team of experts for guidance on medical coding, compliance issues, and revenue cycle management. We're here to answer your questions and support your professional growth. And my personal favorite, the community connection. We're connected, y'all. Join a private community of healthcare professionals where you can network, share experiences, and collaborate on finding solutions to common challenges, like the challenges that we just put before you today. So, by supporting us, you're not only advancing your healthcare knowledge and career, but also contributing to the success of the Professional Reimbursement Network, LLC, a resource that empowers healthcare professionals like you to thrive in their roles, goals, and dreams. So thank you for considering becoming a member of the Tea Sippers for the cost of 2 cups of tea, regular tea, per month. You can join the community. Check out the link in the description of the video. Your support means the world to us, and we look forward to helping you excel in the world of health information and healthcare revenue cycle. So again, everyone, thank you so much for joining the Saturday morning tea or checking out the replay. Let me just ask you, was the tea spilled today? Put your tea cups in the chat. Was it spilled today?
Yes.
Yes. And at the Saturday morning tea, we're all about building a community of savvy, informed, marketable healthcare professionals. So like, share, subscribe, and comment. Let's grow this community together. Mr. Jesse, do you have any closing thoughts?
My only closing thought is I would love to have Glenn Krause get into risk adjustment, because the way he tears CDI apart, I'm telling you, I would pay money. Because
reach out to him, have a conversation. He's very approachable.
I mean, because as much as because even when he goes in on his post in LinkedIn, and what I find funny is that he's not wrong though.
And I think how he just like you explained how you come in with a different mindset and a different perspective. He does the same thing in risk adjustment and in CDI, and tries to get folks to understand kind of the bigger, broader picture of what it is or what it should be based on what it started out as. But what it's now morphing into is a little distant from what its true beginnings were. And he's just calling folks out, calling the people out.
That he is.
And I don't blame him one bit. That's what we do here. We try to call people out on stuff too. Put people on blast. Oh, goodness. Well, this has been a great session today. I appreciate you spending part of your Saturday morning here with us to expand your knowledge toolkit and get some information on what's going on in healthcare. Tune in next week as we will be discussing another hot healthcare informational topic that you won't want to miss. So see you tea sippers in a few minutes at 10:15 a.m. where we will have the meeting after the meeting. Yes. And remember, be safe, be kind, and don't wish for it, work for it. Until next time, take care. Have a good weekend. Talk soon.
Happy Father's Day.
Oh, yeah, I forgot. I'm sorry. Happy Father's Day to all the fathers that we got in our healthcare world and who may be listening. So happy Father's Day. Enjoy. Do something sweet and special. Or nothing at all. Kick back. You deserve it. Get the big piece of chicken. All right.
Bye-bye.